Welcome to Thriver TV, the place to break free from narcissistic abuse with quantum tools and understandings. I really do believe that there is so much miscomprehension out there about how to heal from narcissistic abuse, and often exactly the things that we're told to believe and do are exactly the things that keep us stuck in the state of not healing. I discovered as a result of the Thriver Way to Heal that the three things that are vital to heal are the most counterintuitive things, the things that we initially believe were not what would help us get better, yet profoundly do. So in today's Thriver TV episode, I'm going to share these with you, these three things that you think won't help you, yet are vital to grant you any hope of healing at all. And in fact, accelerate the success of your healing journey beyond description if you commit to them. Okay, so let's get started. Number one is don't try to push on past the pain. Law of attraction principles are all about training ourselves to stop thinking negative thoughts so that we can start anchoring into more positive ways of thinking. And I know that once upon a time, I totally thought that this was key myself, that it's a correct human quest to not think about it and just get on with it, and that our negative emotions were something to be avoided at all costs. And after all, it was shameful to have negative emotions. Somehow it made us defective, unpalatable, and unacceptable. How could we even begin to accept our negative emotions when we've had the experience that other people can't either? Yet we all suffered the realization as a result of narcissistic abuse that our painful emotions couldn't just be buried and pushed through. This was different. This time there was no more just getting on with it. And for most of us, clearly, the strategy of just get up and get on with it no longer worked. Myself and many others were faced with what Dr. Joe Dispenza calls the time of personal catharsis, when we simply cannot emotionally go on as life is normal. And this happens when we're taken down to our knees. And I love what my dear friend Simone Waddell said to me over lunch last week: knowledge is not the answer. Because we all know what we should be doing, and logically we know what is right action and even what we may need to do to feel better. Yet narcissistic abuse is a spiritual problem. This is not something that you can just push through. It's something that needs to be cellularly addressed and healed through, because it's our entire spirit that's been affected here. The truth is, contemporarily, most people don't recover from narcissistic abuse. At best, they try to manage and live with their ongoing trauma. And the reasons are because they believe that they should just be able to push past the pain or find a way to shut it up. And they stay firm in this thinking that to go toward the pain is the wrong thing to do, believing it will mire them in it, make them worse, and render them as a victim. Yet the experience is that the pain and the obsession doesn't decrease. And often the feelings of the narcissist crawling under your skin like a terrible psychic disease doesn't stop either. People will tell you to get over it and get on with your life because that's what they were taught to do as well. And unless they've been narcissistically abused themselves, they could not possibly understand how virtually impossible that is to do. As Bessel van der Kolk states in The Body Keeps the Score, the more intense the visceral sensory input from the emotional brain, the less capacity the rational brain has to put a damper on it. And until we realize that to resolve our trauma, if we don't go within, we go without, we feel like a failure. Our helplessness and the anxiety and the depression we suffer worsens as we can't improve our feelings or our life no matter how hard we try to think our way out of it. We feel exhausted and like we're fighting a losing battle. And this is where many people give up because it's too hard to push through unspeakable inner trauma, which, like all trauma, is just not going away. What neuron and quantum scientists are now discovering and teaching is that very few people can resolve emotional trauma with logic, and that trauma has a life of its own until it's met and healed. And I'm so happy to say that for myself and others who did turn inwards to love and heal ourselves back to wholeness, not only did we free ourselves of the terrible, unlivable holocaust of narcissistic abuse trauma, we also evolved the fears and insecurities that we'd unconsciously been living with all of our life as our normal. Fully meeting our wounds with quantum tools, with the loving devotion of a mother tending to her young, allowed us to fully self-partner and trust, love, and accept ourselves. It granted us the experience of coming home to full inner peace and fullness. It granted us the ability to finally understand the quantum truth of so within, so without. That love has to happen between self and self first, and that no one is going to be there for us unconditionally until we turn inwards to fully be with ourselves, wounds and all. Discovering that these are not the times to treat ourselves with self-avoidance, abandonment and rejection, but with love instead. Narcissistic abuse forces us to learn this soul lesson and to embody it and rise as phoenixes from the ashes as a result of it. I'm passionate about this because I want that emancipation and true soul freedom for everyone. Okay, so number 2 is stop trying to combat the narcissist in order to feel better. We are taught to turn towards the source of the issues and try to make that person or people change or stop what they're doing. In our normal life, before the huge quantum spiritual lessons of narcissistic abuse, that requires us to understand deeper consciousness in order to get free and get well. To some extent, confronting people and things may have worked for us. People with a conscience can be sorry and apologetic, and their natural inclination is to not hurt people. Narcissists are like our children and difficult people in our life. The more we push against something they do, the more they push back and up the ante. These people are all nemesises, people who bring us pain. And the dictionary describes a nemesis as the inescapable agent of someone's or something's downfall. Yet this is how I now look at these people, as breaking down our previous way of being to enable us to have an incredible inner breakthrough. There is no greater impetus to go for light than when we descend into darkness. And there is no greater reason to seek a higher power than when we are rendered completely powerless. When we butt heads with a narcissist, we end up powerless. You can't make crazy act sane. You can't make someone cooperate when harmony and cooperation was never their goal. You will never get resolution with someone who gets a feed out of what they can mine from you and how significantly they can hook you and hurt you. We get the urges to go in and again to try to get decency, understanding, remorse, accountability, compassion, atonement, love, sentimentality, or whatever it is that we feel we need from this person. You don't receive it at all. Instead, they are circling you and emotionally slicing you to pieces. As the resolution you require slips further and further away and matters get worse and crueler and more devastating, the panic usually intensifies, causing you to go back in harder, even though the evidence is clear that this isn't working. It's our emotional drivers keeping us doing this, and unless we get control of them, they can take us all the way to our demise. It is the most counterintuitive thing to do, to let go, detach, and no longer combat something or someone that is significantly hurting us. Yet with toxic people, and even those we can't affect and change, there truly is nothing else to do. There are 2 quantum laws about this that are deep cellular inner organic wisdom that is innate. When we start clearing the traumas within, separating us from these truths. And please know this applies to really unhealthy people such as narcissists, as well as people we are battling with, which can include people like our children. People who are not pathological and who we dearly care about, yet are not seeing eye to eye with. The first is, if we are triggered into deep fears and wounds and we try to change something or someone without, in order to feel healthier within, then we will always come up empty. From a place of inner woundedness, we don't inspire people to stand up because we're not leading the way. We also don't have the inner resources to feel sound and whole, regardless if people don't step up as a true source to ourselves. We're not in a position to let go and generate our healthy, full life without them because we've handed our power away. We've made our life conditional on what this person is or isn't doing. There is no time where this is the most brutally unsafe when we play this out with narcissists. Just as there is no more devastating time when we see our children going down paths we don't want them to go down when we're powerless to stop them. Quantum truth, so within, so without, is the psychology equivalent of codependency, meaning the more you try to control another in order to feel in control, the more you will be controlled by them and feel out of control. Something is for sure, this state of self-deterioration is serious and it can even be deadly. If we want to get well, we need to find another way. And the way out of this is totally counterintuitive. It is to detach from that person and situation and let go and turn inwards to partner with the triggered painful emotions inside you instead. This goes against everything we believe we should be doing, which is reacting against the outside and what is going on there. And the reason this feels totally counterintuitive is because we were not taught to turn inwards or how we have the ability to change our emotions independent of what is going on the outside. And then we can respond instead of react. We can lead by example. We can inspire people to meet us at a healthier level. We can lay clear boundaries. We can let go of people, and we can also allow people to do their own journeys that they need to, even if we don't agree with them. This goes for narcissists and our children. How can we do this? Because we are already whole, regardless of what other people are or aren't doing. We're having a relationship directly with our inner being and all of life. No longer are we handing power away. This is always our greatest mission in all of life, to master ourselves, not other people, because we have no power and not even any right to master them. And then we discover something completely incredible. The people who do have the resources to be healthy amend their behaviour and join us, inspired by our solid, empowered self. And the people who don't have the resources to be healthy, such as narcissists, leave our experience. So within, so without. When you attend to emotion first, you discover the golden grail of life that is an absolute quantum law. My outer experience follows my inner experience always. Now let's look at our last one. Number 3, stop identifying yourself as a victim. And this may seem at first glance as totally counterintuitive to number one, but it truly isn't. In number one, we were self-partnering with our wounds lovingly in order to heal them. If we are viewing ourselves as a victim, which is what we've been told to do by so many, we are cementing within ourselves that we are damaged and helpless and that somebody else did this to us. And I promise you, I know how enticing this is. And even though it's necessary in the beginning to recognize that you have been a victim of narcissistic abuse, staying in this stage indefinitely, especially in the case of high-level trauma of narcissistic abuse, does not do us any favors. In my latest Facebook Live event, a lady asked the very powerful question, how do I resolve these feelings? And she was, of course, referring to the unspeakable betrayals and cruelties that narcissists do. And my honest answer to her was, on a human level, you can't resolve these feelings logically. How on earth can we, when everything we know as our lives as humans could not even comprehend how people think like this, let alone unleash such unthinkable behavior on people that they profess to love? I truly believe that the only way we can resolve narcissistic abuse is to look at a much higher spiritual picture about this, to look for the purpose and personal evolution in this. Interestingly, when we do make it our mission to turn inwards and free ourselves from our inner traumas, what I'm about to share with you becomes total inner knowing that feels like relief, freedom, and truth in our body. It is this quantum truth of so within, so without. That people and situations in our experience are either reflecting back to us how healed and integrated we are, or they're reflecting to us where we're wounded and need to heal and integrate ourselves back to wholeness. If we're determined to be a victim, we will see this as victim shaming. And I promise you, I understand because I used to be there too. But it did not help me, and there was no way for me to heal my inner wounds and emerge free of them if I was never going to acknowledge them. And when I started healing the Thrive Away with quantum tools, I discovered that Prema Chodron was right with her famous quote, "Nothing ever leaves your experience until it has taught you what you needed to learn." The trauma of narcissistic abuse is exactly like that. It is like a terminator that just does not stop until we heal what we need to heal. What I discovered is the ways that the narcissist hurt me were all to do with fears and insecurities and unresolved resentments I'd always had. It was to do with my fears of criticism, rejection, abandonment, and punishment, stopping me speaking up and laying boundaries. It was about me not knowing how to be a source of love, approval, security, and survival to myself, and trying to assign other people as this source. It was about my own conditional love and perfectionism and never being good enough for my own love. And when I realized he was really the messenger of my wounds and a catalyst to make my unconscious conscious so that I could finally heal these wounds, the narcissist became irrelevant. When I believed I was a victim of my narcissistic abuse and that this was senseless and not a higher soul healing opportunity, my inner identity was totally a victim, in constant despair, resentment, longing for the fantasy I believed he was as my source, and torment. And it just did not let up. It was impossible to heal beyond this, evolve, or set myself free. However, in my shift to a higher consciousness, I was able to achieve all of those things, as well as be so grateful that I was brought to my knees as my soul had so perfectly planned, in order to finally be able to start living my life in my power and truth from the inside out. And this would never have come about if I hadn't been forced to self-partner and heal my wounds. Narcissistic abuse was exactly the catalyst to force me inwards to heal so that I could do that. And that is the Thrive Away. Recognizing a bigger picture truth about all of this and working with it at that level, because the truth finally truly does set us free. And I'll never forget what one of my community members said years ago, this: "Thank goodness you have said that there was a purpose to this. My therapist said to me that this was just bad luck. It was a roll of the dice and it could have happened to anybody. I didn't want to believe that, because how could I heal something if there wasn't a purpose to it? How could I grow if it was just random and senseless? How could I stop it ever happening again?" I agree, totally. We wouldn't be able to. In the Thrive Away to Heal, we can do all of that and so much more. We can emerge from what happened to us, becoming even more confident, radiant, empowered, and extended than we were even before this happened to us, as well as totally inoculated against narcissists in the future. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you'd like to learn more about how to heal for real from toxic relationships and narcissistic abuse, you can sign up to my free 16-day recovery course, which includes an invitation to a healing workshop with me, a set of ebooks, and so much more. So to access these, just click the link at the top right of this video. And if you want to see more videos, please make sure you like and subscribe so you get notified as soon as each new one is released. So until next time, keep smiling, keep healing, and keep thriving, because there's nothing else to do. Lots of love. Bye-bye.